At 6 p.m., call the meeting to order. I'd like to begin with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we gather on the ancestral homeland of Coast Salish people, specifically the Nooksack tribe, who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin throughout the San Juan Islands and the North Cascades watershed from time immemorial. On behalf of everyone here, we want to express our deepest respect and gratitude for our Indigenous neighbors, the Nooksack tribe, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways. Next is pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to note that Danielle is absent and excused. And then, are there any changes to the agenda as written?
Not as written. We did add a few things this morning that I emailed the board about, but the agenda that's on board docs is as it should be.
So I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Motion to approve agenda as written.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Then oath of office, student representative Colby Skelton. Welcome, Colby.
You have the oath there, so you guys are actually very good.
So we've got, you have a copy of the, okay. Raise your right hand. I, Colby Skelton,
I, Colby Skelton,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution of laws in the state of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge
the duties of the office of student representative
the duties of the office of student representative
of Mount Baker School District number 507
of Mount Baker School District number 507
in and for the county of Whatcom,
in and for the county of Whatcom,
state of Washington,
state of Washington,
according to the law
according to the law
and to the best of my ability.
and to the best of my ability.
And then you can see they already have a seat for you.
Right. Yes, I can right here. I just want to say for the benefit of the board and our audience that normally the plan is to have 2 student reps, but because we're getting this whole student rep program restarted, our Lita and Gabby you started January.
December, but January.
Yep, January 1. So their term is going to end on December 31st. And so Colby's coming on now. His term will end 1 year from now. And then in October or November, we're going to interview for the second student rep. And then starting in January, it'll be that new student and Colby. And then we'll be able to alternate. And that way nobody's coming on without somebody else to help them out.
And as you probably already know, and we'll certainly find out much more in the near term, you have 2 excellent mentors right here. So
Yes.
they'll definitely get you going and show you all the ropes.
They've kept me in the loop a lot and I really appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you. Next is public comments. Do we have anyone signed up? Oh, there you are, Natalie. I didn't see you behind that.
Surprise, surprise. Good evening. Thank you for listening to public comments. I want to give you an update on Jennifer Robbie's lawsuit against Merck, a lawsuit that I spoke about at a previous meeting sometime last year. Jennifer is a former high school athlete in California who has been confined to a wheelchair since age 16 after receiving doses of the Gardasil HPV vaccine. Her landmark lawsuit, filed in 2016, was the first vaccine injury case to go through the required process of applying for compensation through the Federal Vaccine Injury Compensation Program and then on to civil trial. Jennifer's lawsuit, along with many others, was filed in state court, and over 200 similar cases against Merck have also been filed in federal court. Jennifer's original lawsuit also accused Kaiser of medical malpractice for administering the vaccine and for failure to diagnose her autoimmune condition and its link to the vaccine. Kaiser entered into a settlement agreement with Jennifer in January 2025, and just last month, she entered into a settlement agreement with Merck. Jennifer's attorneys said that her case against Merck has been resolved and that terms of the settlement are confidential. My guess is that Jennifer received millions of dollars in the lawsuit settlement, and rightly so. On a different note, I want to bring your attention to a book that was published in 2023 called The Indoctrinated Brain: How to Successfully Fend Off the Global Attack on Your Mental Freedom, written by Dr. Michael Nels, MD, PhD, who is a molecular geneticist. Dr. Nels explains from a neuroscientific point of view how chronic stress and fear-mongering have led to inhibited hippocampal neurogenesis, decreased mental resilience, and impaired critical thinking, which facilitate indoctrination. He describes how specific brain changes make us more susceptible to indoctrination and decreases our ability to critically think. Dr. Nels also describes how many of the factors that cause those brain changes in the first place have been implemented worldwide during the COVID years. And I'll add that these factors are still being implemented after the COVID years, as we have seen with the nonstop propaganda and fear-mongering around bird flu, measles, antivirus, Lyme's, and now Ebola. And more will come, as we know. And in my opinion, this will continue until power and control is taken away from the unelected globalist multi-billionaire psychopaths. And no, I'm not name calling. If you look up the definition of psychopath, it's a very accurate and appropriate word to use to describe the multi-billionaire globalists who I'm referring to. This is not about left versus right, Democrats versus Republicans, as more and more people are realizing. Although that is what the divisive mainstream media and public politicians would like for us to believe, this is really about big pharma, big tech, and multi-billionaire globalists who have unrestrained power. We have seen this during both the Biden and Trump administrations as well as previous ones. The good news is that in his book, Dr. Nels not only describes the way that our cognition and critical thinking can get impaired, he also explains the proactive steps that we can take to protect our neurological health, and in so doing, protect ourselves against indoctrination at the same time. I hope that you'll consider reading the book, The Indoctrinated Brain by Dr. Nels, and encourage the teenagers in your lives to do the same. Because, as we know, critical thinking is critical. And teaching our children and teens how to critically think and ask critical questions is one of the most important life skills that we can teach them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Jen.
So I was just at your budget meeting, and I'm very happy that you guys had that open. I loved being able to hear the dialogue there. But I have some questions. Are we looking at current test data? Are we doing a root cause and analysis and a countermeasure to understand why we aren't meeting the marks and what we are going to do and how that can or does not align with our current budget and what needs are we're going to miss? I've asked many of you, and I've said it, I think, in a couple different meetings. Are you going to the PTO meetings and the PTA meetings? Are you listening to what your community is willing to spend money on, what they're concerned about? I haven't seen you there, but I haven't gone to all of them, so I'm not saying you haven't been there. But I ask you again, are you going? I know that I just went to Harmony's PTO meeting, and in next year's budget, we have a line item to pay for the AR testing. So our school isn't going to have it, understandably so, but it's important enough that the teachers and this principal have come to the PTO and asked for the funding to do it. So if we have problems, if we have areas where we have a deficit in our testing, and what is our root cause and our countermeasure? How are we going to overcome it if we're taking away the tools that we currently have to do that? So I just encourage you to do what manufacturing does. When you have a deficit, what are you going to do to overcome it? So Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have signed up. Anyone else wish to address the board? If not, next good of the order.
Well, I want to recognize the 89 high school seniors who walked across the stage last week. Just some numbers for you. We had about 43% of our graduates this year are going to go into the workforce. About 2% are going to the military, 27% into a four-year college or university, and then about 30% or 27% going to a two-year college or other opportunity. So it was a great event, and I'm glad that most of you were able to be there. My very first one here at Mount Baker, and hopefully it won't be my last. Yesterday, we celebrated 11 of our retirees, both classified and certificated staff. Tammy added it up, and it was at 308 combined years of service to the Mount Baker School District. It was actually just a really nice event in here. Tammy set it all up, and over 30 people were here and just reminiscing about these people that they love and are going to miss. And so it was fun. Tomorrow is the last day of school. So we're gearing up for that. Our secondary students will be out at noon. Our elementary students will be out at 1. It's been a good year. And lastly, if you haven't noticed on the freeway, thanks to the advocacy of both parents and the school board, we do have some new signage out that the Washington Department of Transportation has put in. It's not a roundabout, but at least does give drivers some indication of why they should slow down as they get near our campus. And then there will be a new brighter light installed at the intersection at Mitchell Road as well, which will help with visibility in the evenings. So some progress, and we'll keep working on it.
Thank you. Next is information from student representatives. I'll start with you, Lita, but Colby, I'm just going to warn you that you will get a chance here too, so you can think of what you want. So go ahead, Lita.
Well, one of the big things that we've got is some student achievements from the Puget Sound Junior Livestock Show. We had a good batch of kids go and show pigs, and I think a few of them showed lambs at the show. Ariana Wooden, Ethan Tritz, Emily Moa, and Ella Horseman got swine market grading reserve champion. Ariana Wooden was junior reserve champion swine showman. Emily Moa was reserve novice swine champion, and Silas Maple was grand champion novice swine showman. About 12 students showed swine exactly. Casey Pinky, Ariana Wooden, Kelsey Pinky, Ethan Tritz, Emily Moa, Ella Horseman, Aiden Wallahi, Jaden Goff, Silas Maple, Emma Richardson, and Dixie Lee Murray and Maxine Heidi. Mount Baker FFA actually had 40% of all of the FFA hogs down at the Skagit Fairgrounds. 2 students showed lambs, Duncan Hanks and Bella Oldenkamp, and both received blues in lamb market grading and showmanship. And total with all those animals, the total pool of money was about $19,000, I think. All in total is what they earned for their animals. So pretty good day for Mount Baker.
I would say I'm an ASB and we just got on new people and they've been in the classroom for like 2 weeks now. And I've been really, really impressed and excited with what our new ASB members are going to be able to do for our school. This year, I would say we have the most like diverse group of people from all different places around campus, which is very important, especially in ASB when you're dealing with everyone around campus. We were just in conversation today about a couple like important projects and things we want to do, and the whole group works together well. So I'm just looking forward to next year's ASB and the good things they'll be able to do.
Thank you. Gabby?
Hi.
But you don't have to say anything if you didn't have it yet. That's fine. So, so next up is information from board, and I know that Ed, you're anxious to give us the report on the state track meet.
Oh,
so.
yeah. So I was at the state track meet 2 weeks ago in Yakima, and Mount Baker had quite a few athletes there. They did really, really well. I was super proud of everyone. You know, one of the things I heard the coaches tell the athletes is, do your best, and win or lose, shake your opponent's hand And they did that, and it's hard because it's emotional, right? Everybody wants to win, but I feel like that's one of the things that we want our students to learn how to do, you know, good sportsmanship. And yeah, our first year involved with that program, I thought it was great, a lot of fun. And I think 6 or 7 athletes got invited to a track meet at Nike in Eugene, Oregon, which is coming up. So it's kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity for them to run, you know, where the Olympic trials are and NCAA and all that. So pretty nice facility. If we had 1% of the money they spent on that, we could redo our field. I also attended the awards for academic excellence for trimester 3 at the high school. So I think there was probably 50 or 60 students there. They're called up on stage in front of their peers, and their teacher gives them, you know, explains why they're winning that award. It was supposed to be secret for the students, but it's kind of hard when the parents and the students park in the same parking lot. So Lita got an award, which was great for history. And just a lot of positive things. I just make a mental note that maybe we could invite other board members to attend next year, because you get to hear about all these really great students and what they're doing and working on. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Jason?
The Puget Livestock Show, I was down there both days. That was a good time. It's fun. It's like there's a couple kids, their pigs didn't make weight, so they left them here at the barn, and they even went down and had a great time and helped out. That was fun. I went to the baccalaureate night. That was a great time. That was really good. I believe 21 kids showed up to it, which was good. That was fun. And then obviously graduation was great. The weather was perfect. It wasn't too hot. That was really good. So that's all I really have.
So we did our Acme visit, which was really great. It was so good to hear Kim came, the day before, and we saw that there are students that are meeting benchmarks and meeting goals for reading and math, right, down there, and also at Kendall. So that's been really inspiring to hear that feedback from those 2 schools. The Harmony visit was a while ago, so we're looking forward to that for next year. But Acme you guys missed a lot. Did you ever make it into the attic?
Yes, I did.
You did, okay.
I'll
So
report on the
attic.
attic.
That was interesting. We saw a lot of stuff that needs to get fixed there, so I know that that's on the wavelength for Shannon. So all those things. I am still attending the WASA leadership, and we're off for the summer. But I was in Yakima for 2 days and met with the principals and superintendent there. Was able to watch one of their PLCs for their kindergarten classrooms. So I would be curious if that's something that we can do maybe next year, just to see how it goes. It was pretty impressive how they were working together and what they were talking about during their time. So I think it would be really beneficial for us to see it here on a Wednesday. And graduation was fun. The one perk of one of the perks, I guess, of school board.
Yes, right.
Yeah, the best perk, maybe. Yeah.
So, yeah, great. Let's see what I have. I attended the Van Zandt Hall reopening, and as I mentioned before, the Mount Baker School District has reversionary rights on the Van Zandt Hall. It was originally a school. After all the work that's gone in combination of community donations and assistance from the county and the state, it's gorgeous. If you get a chance to go to any event there, I think you'll enjoy seeing it. So it's really nice to see that old building take on a new lease on life. Mount Baker Capital Projects meeting with Severus, and that's further on our agenda, so I won't get into it, but Shannon will be here too. But that was a good start to looking at kind of capital projects needs. Attended the FFA Awards Bank, which I always really enjoy. I mean, when the kids were here, there was a debate whether we should only go to the awards and skip the banquet part. I'm glad I didn't skip the banquet. But to see how much is accomplished by our kids in FFA, it's really gratifying to have that year-end program. Acme School visit, we got a chance to see both whole classroom instruction and small groups, and things working really, really smoothly. I think the school has a really nice feel to it. Some of the some of the capital projects thing, there's leaking on one of the gym walls that needs to be examined and addressed. And I did make it up into the attic, and in fact, we do have insulation up there. So that had been written down, or hadn't been, but I had remembered that we had paid, that we paid for it here. So yeah, it is insulated. Combination of blow-in and some bats. But my highlight at Acme was a kindergarten girl talking to me, and she said, I call my grandpa Happy. She said, when he does something nice for me, I say, thank you, Happy. Like this. Kindergarten is my favorite class to visit. That's why. A Board of Natural Resources meeting, which I attend pretty much every month. They have a lottery for whether you get to speak your 2 minutes or not. I was number 2 this month, and it happened to be, I needed to go down to Seattle that day, so I went to Olympia to speak in person so I could talk with the folks before and afterwards some too. But so I did get in a bit of a plug for Mount Baker School Districts. We had, I think at minimum bid, $67,000 worth of timber sales on this month's agenda, which, and I don't know if it was because I was there or not, but Superintendent Reckdahl did not oppose those this time. And usually he's been voting against everyone that includes older forests. So maybe he didn't want to vote against them when I was in the room, but so that will be coming sometime over the next 2 years. Graduation, very lovely, very lovely. I thought it was very, very solemn and dignified. The speeches were excellent, and the music, and and for how much it's been raining lately, it was one little time it held off on the rain. So we had a state auditor exit meeting, and I think you probably will cover that later, so I won't get into that, but so we can cover some of the details. Retirement tea, that was yesterday. It was really, really sweet. We went around the room with memories of the retirees, and it was just a delightful thank you for kind of setting the scene and asking people to contribute, because I think that really made the event much more meaningful. And then the Trust Lands Advisory Committee for WASDA, which I chair, is one of the things we're working on is fixing currently the federal forest payments, the law that allowed the OSPI just pass through the payments is lapsed. And so OSPI just has the money that's come from the federal government for those federal forest payments just sitting in an account there. They're not dispersing it. So we're working with a state legislator from Skamania County, which is the county that's by far most affected. We get some, but to correct that in this next upcoming session. So that's all I have. Next up is the consent agenda. I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Superintendent informational items.
Well, with your vote on the consent agenda, you did just approve the hire of our new student services director. We interviewed Mr. Stephen Dahl, who is currently the SQUIM student services director, but he has roots here in Whatcom County. So he used to work in Linden, he used to work in Meridian. He has worked for different consulting services. He has, I believe, a very broad and deep experience specifically around leadership and staff development. And I think that's something that we're definitely looking forward to bringing him on. I'm going to invite him to our July board meeting, so you'll get a chance to meet him. And he's really excited to hit the ground running with us. So I know we were a little bit worried about whether or not we had enough time to find a quality candidate, and we definitely did. And then with the audit meeting that we had with the state, I think it was on Monday. It is a clean audit, and that's a really good thing. The only finding is the fact that we're in binding conditions, and that's an automatic finding. But I think we have another meeting with OSPI around binding conditions. Is it next week or the week after? Just to check in. And again, they're really pleased with the work that we're doing. We're on track to exit binding conditions, and we'll give an update on that. There were a few recommendations. I can't remember the exact term, something less than a finding, but I will, in my board update tomorrow, I'll provide everybody with the full report.
Management letters.
Yeah, that we received. And that's something that's a public record as well that people can find on the state website.
I do think one of those referenced better record keeping for our let's see, it was release time staff
Supplemental pay.
supplemental contracts, yes, and I think that will help you know, kind of, you've asked some questions about those, and I think it is actually beneficial for us to be prodded from the state auditor to have the work that's involved with those supplemental contracts for staff be delineated in the bracket.
The other thing that we were able to come to agreement on is a memorandum of understanding with the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office. We are going to be the first district in Whatcom County to have a criminal justice class, and this will be a CTE class. It'll be taught by a current lieutenant within the Sheriff's Department. And so he'll be conditionally CTE certified. He's working with our teachers and a consultant who I know very well, who's taught this class before. And so they're developing this class, so it'll be taught spring trimester. It's got a lot of time to get that ready, but we have over 50 students who have expressed interest in it. And so we've got that agreement, and I think it's going to be a fantastic opportunity for Mount Baker. And then yesterday we had a very good meeting with members of the Nooksack tribe. We had a couple council members and then some of their education departments, their new general manager. It was a really fun, dynamic meeting where they are incredibly energetic and excited about building a stronger relationship with the Mount Baker School District for the support of their Nooksack tribal students, but really all students. Like, how do we make education better for all students? And so one of the things that, because of our increased enrollment of tribal students in our district, we're now receiving over $40,000 in our Title VI money from the federal government. And that triggers something called consultancy. And so that just means that we need to be more intentional and have engaging with the tribe more and making decisions about how we spend that money. One of the things that we're going to do for this next school year is use that Title VI money to hire tribal liaison position. And that'll be someone who's dedicated to time to working with students on attendance and working with students on just engaging, what are their needs and how can we support them better. Another part of that consultancy trigger is that you as a school board are required to engage in government to government training. You as the government representatives, the Mount Baker School District and the government of the Nooksack tribe. I'm going to be participating in a Zoom tomorrow with them because a lot of tribes around the state, they develop these trainings for Prince with my admin certificate. I'm required to I completed government to government training a couple of years ago. It was a Zoom session that I did. I can't remember where the tribe was that was hosting that. But what our Nooksack tribe wants to do is have one here. So it would be in person. It wouldn't just be a Zoom experience. And so I'll find out more about that tomorrow.
So would that be a government training with the Nooksack?
Yes.
Oh, good.
So after I have that meeting with them and my board update with you tomorrow, I'll give you that information. I'm also going to invite them to come to a portion of our board retreat in August. So they're very interested in meeting each of you and just, again, building real relationships. And so speaking of the board retreat, I will be emailing you a list of ideas that I've started to develop for what we want to do during that board retreat. And I'll just ask you to give me any additional ideas that you might have, or even veto some of the ideas that I might have, so that I can start developing that agenda. And that's all I have.
Okay, great. So next up is capital projects update. Shannon? On here.
So I have
Welcome.
Amy Zimmerman from Service Architects with me this evening. And Edith and Russ already met her, but she's gonna start the first part of the presentation and share some information that she's been working on for the district. Okay, so on our agenda today, we're going to cover the asset preservation program, the building condition assessment, hazardous assessment, capital project fund budget, the current capital projects, and our next steps.
So I'll go over really quickly at the OSPI, the Office of the Superintendent, and the Asset Preservation Program, just so you can kind of get a history of what we do these BCAs and study and surveys for. So OSPI's Asset Preservation Program is a Washington state requirement intended to protect the state's investment in school facilities that were built or modernized with state construction funding. The program is administered by the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, and it requires school districts to actively maintain their state-funded buildings and document that maintenance over the life of the facility. A district's participation in APP is also a requirement for eligibility for future state construction assistance through programs such as the School Construction Assistance Program. So essentially, this happens every 6 years. That's the cycle for a school district. And Mount Baker School District went out for an RFQ, hired Service Architects, my company, to perform the building condition assessment and the study and survey. So building condition assessment, my staff and I spent about probably a week on site at each campus, myself, and then an associate designer. We're all required by the state to be BCA certified. And that was working with myself and then a structural engineer. We hired KingWorks Consulting Engineers. They, at the same time, do their natural hazard assessment. And it's sort of a two-part process. We met with facilities firsthand to really hear about anything and everything that we can't see with our own eyes, which is a lot of mechanical, electrical, stormwater, just kind of all of those hidden systems that are having issues. And then we do a physical site walk and then review every building in person, looking at everything from lighting, finishes, accessories, casework, essentially everything in the building. And then everything is given a score. One thing that we clarified in the last time I was here is that the state has a pretty regimented scoring percentage. So we don't come up with those percentages. Those are all developed by the state. So excellent, that's usually a new build building, or something that's less than 7 years old. Good is usually in that 7 to 10 range. And then we start getting into fair, which is 62%, poor, which is 30%, and unsatisfactory. Kind of some overview. You can go back to the next one. So I just put in some real quick slides. It's typical for a school district's buildings to all go down and as far as the rating, and that's just the progression of it, with normal wear and tear, age of the building. We saw a pretty consistent decline, somewhere in that 5 to 10% range. Some of the heavier hitting declines, Acme, for instance. We have issues that were noted earlier with some water intrusion, possibly some venting issues with the existing gymnasium wood floor. We also have the covered play that had some damage in the past, was also in disrepair. These are some of the things that definitely scored in the poor condition. This picture on the right doesn't highlight it too closely, but the pointing, the masonry, and the mortar definitely needs some attention out at Acme, and the roof and a couple other things that we noted. Kendall, I kind of threw in some pictures here to give you an idea. Most buildings will rate aesthetically or is with their finishes in the fair range, about a 62%. That's the percentage of fair from OSPI. And a lot of the times that has to do with normal wear and tear from students and upkeep, paint finish on hollow metal doors and frames, torn wall covering, rips and tears in carpet. Just natural things that you see with most buildings. The biggest thing that we noticed as a discrepancy at Kendall was the condition of the siding. We do have quite a bit of an issue there with the exposed weather barrier and even insulation into the core wall assembly, and then some prefab concrete sill issues. So wanted to highlight that there. And then the junior high and the high school, this definitely ranked in the better range. And again, things that are pulling it into the fair category are just wear and tear with finishes, carpet, exterior painting, where we have some water intrusion. Some of those photos there are from the woodwork shop, and just on the exterior where we have different material transitions. But there's nothing that we saw that was out of the ordinary in our VCAs. And again, you want to see them trend down in percentage, because those lower percentage and the older the age of the building, the more funding that you get from the state. And then the last component of that was the natural hazard assessment. So Kingwork Structural Engineers, they put this graph together. I still will try to understand all of this, but essentially, so they are looking at it from their review is with regard to a seismic event. So they have this thing called the EPA, which is the Earthquake Performance Assessment Tool, and it estimates how a building is likely to perform during a future earthquake by looking at both the earthquake hazards at the site and the building's ability to resist earthquake forces. It considers factors such as local ground shaking, soil conditions, liquefaction potential, the building's age, structural system, and any features that make it more vulnerable to damage. And the biggest thing that we see are just these older buildings, particularly the masonry buildings, that rely on construction that includes the brick as a structural component, or the white in there, that just won't stand up to a major seismic event. So Acme is a high risk building. I think there were also, most of them scored pretty well in the low category. Acme Elementary, high risk because of the older brick construction that's also failing to some degree. Harmony was a very high risk for same thing, reinforced masonry, wood frame construction. But most of the other buildings are all low risk. But as far as life safety, there's no substantial life safety issues there. It's just thinking about this and the idea of a large seismic event.
So that portion was completed. I think we still have a few things to wrap up, but then we'll move into the study and survey.
Okay, so moving right along, the capital project fund 26-27 budget. So our projected beginning fund balance is a little over $3 million. Revenue from local taxes, 2 million. State and special purpose, that is 1 million, and that is coming from our grants that we are going to be reimbursed for. And then local non-tax investment earnings, 125,000. So total estimated capital project revenue, a little over $3 million.
So before you go on, the state special purpose, what describe that in this?
So those are the grants that we have received that we will be reimbursed for.
Okay.
So the urgent repair, emergency, and healthy kids, healthy schools grants.
Is that include the building condition assessment too as part of, or are we?
You know what, that one is not in there,
But there was a grant for
Yes.
that.
Yeah, okay.
So after I go through this, we can pause for the expenditures. So the capital levy projects, so technology equipment, 500,000, Acme siding repair is 1.1 million, and that is an accurate number. We did have a company come out and give us that quote.
Could you, so the Acme siding repair, is that intended to be a covering the brick with some sort of covering or pointing?
Pointing.
Because I'd like to, ideally, I'd like to get an estimate of so that we could just compare pointing versus a typo. One, some of the more what are the reasonable alternatives to pointing, whether it's metal or a concrete product, because the reason why, because pointing, we get it done and we're not too far ahead in the future, still in the same position. And I'd like to at least be able to balance the pros and cons of which way to go there and have idea, if we could afford it, a more permanent solution to that. So it's and it may not fit in the same schedule that way, but I think having that information before we decide this way or decide that way would be valuable for me at least.
I agree with you, and which is why the next line is the capital needs assessment. And Jessica, myself, CSG, EME's group, we've really been in a lot of communication about where we need to head with these capital projects because of that, kind of exactly what you're saying, what really is best. And part of that capital needs assessment brings in civil engineers, electrical, mechanical, building envelope specialists that can give us that information, because
Good.
you are correct. Like that is truly what we need to move forward. So that's why we've added that in there. Also the turf field investigation as the next line. And then the just allocated funds for priority projects. So based on that capital needs assessment, and really prioritizing our projects, it'll be about $3 million. So in a total, about $4.7 million. And so total expenditures, 1.5, and then expenditures over revenue, 1.5, and then projected fund balance in 2027, 1.5 million.
The other thing, the non-levy projects having zero there, that's notable, because districts without a capital projects levy pay for all of their capital maintenance out of the operating budget. It comes out of the classroom. That was the case when you were on the board, Peter. I think we had the only thing that we could that was outside of the operating budget was some state forest revenue that was based on our previous bonds. But I think that's the importance of having the capital projects levy. It keeps this, well, 3.7 million of local funds out. It protects that from having to come from the operating budget, which would be devastating.
It's important to remember this is like just a projected budget, and based off of what we heard tonight with the board, we might make some adjustments. And that's also the reason, and I'm sure you're speaking into it, where we need more information about making the best decisions about what we're going to do. And so that's why instead of detailing out what that 3 million might be, we want to wait till if the board approves it, if we do this capital needs assessment, then we'll be able to come back to the board this fall and give you a much better idea of what we're thinking.
So our current capital projects, and when I say capital projects, this does not mean that these are all levy funded. There is a combination of grant funded projects in here as well. So capital just encompasses all of them. So right now, Kendall Elementary, we're doing the fire suppression replacement project. So Tiger Construction did mobilize at the end of May to begin demolition of the existing fire system. Southeast Fire will be coming in right behind them, and we'll be installing the new system. And we anticipate that project to be complete August of 2026 before kiddos come back to school. Here at the junior senior high campus, we have been working on the 800 gym. So that had significant water damage due to a very, very old roof, and the roof replacement is complete. Now we are working on the interior. Painting is underway. Equipment purchase is in progress. The floor installation will happen late summer, and then that project will also be completed in August before the kids come back. Harmony, there is a fencing project. It's relatively small to secure the west perimeter playground. That will also be completed in August. And then Acme, replacing the ramps for the portables, also completed before kids come back to school. It's going to be a very busy summer.
Yeah.
And then really delving into the outdoor learning space, which was something that the staff up there really indicated that they were interested in pursuing. So it'll be a lot of fun. So just next steps, again, just completing that capital needs assessment for really in-depth review of our facilities, and then prioritizing capital projects, and then completing that turf field investigation.
Out of the current project, was it on the previous slide, how much was levy funded versus grant funded?
So what I can go through and tell you. So Kendall Elementary is $500,000 grant funded, and then $900,000 levy funded. The 800 gym is completely grant funded. The Harmony fencing project is under $4,000 for that project. And then the ramps, I anticipate probably somewhere around like $40,000 for those. And then the outdoor learning space, we just have to develop, more of a plan to even give you a projection.
So overall,
But both of those are part of that Acme grant that we
just
received as well.
overall, maybe about $1 million of levy funded. When you add it all up.
Yeah.
So did you have anything else?
I don't have anything. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, questions? Any questions of the board?
I just wanted to clear up, so when you say buildings that are state funded, you have to prove that they're being taken care of. So what
is like state funded just a general term, or is that because of $20? Can you explain like a state funded building?
Yeah, so the state funding, so OSPI has this really intense factor for how they determine what funds the school district gets from the state. And I wish I had it on me. It has to do with the assessed property value versus the building square footage, which is over 30 years old. So the 30-year mark will begin the time frame that something is eligible for an OSPI state match. So you take that eligible square footage, that gets multiplied by a state or a number from the state, and then that factors in, I think, also like enrollment and something else, and it comes out with this percentage of funds that a school district will match for the eligible older square footage. So it comes from the state as matching dollars.
That's the match looking forward, but I think they're also looking backwards at buildings that we did use state funding for, which includes this campus, Kendall, and then more recently, again, the field house. So that's the asset protection of those buildings that the state did assist with the funding.
Yeah, the study and survey, it's kind of a holistic binder at the end of this whole exercise that OSPI gives a grant to the district for. It includes all of the percentage ratings for each building. We only focus on the buildings that are educational spaces. And then it includes a floor plan of each building that highlights any modernization or addition. And then that will capture the year, the square footage. And then you can kind of track when a building becomes eligible.
Okay, and then that's the state modernization grant.
Yeah.
And as you pull together, as you're pulling together the information on this next step, let me know. I'd like to review what you come up with.
It's gonna be really exciting. I'm actually looking
Yeah,
forward to it.
This is a very good step, and I'm
Yeah.
very pleased with it. So thank you. And I agree that, you set the overall budget, but what we're actually gonna spend it on will depend on the results of this more careful examination of the needs and the options. That's okay. So next up is strategic plan review, and let's see. We also are, as a part of that, and I don't have it written down here on the agenda, but as part of that, I anticipate a board feedback, a discussion for that. So
My
what?
hope is that after my presentation, that discussion can happen.
Yeah. So if you can start with your presentation on the strategic plan review, and then we'll have feedback or discussion after that. So if you go ahead.
Okay, so this presentation is an overview of the plan that's still very much in draft. So that is the purpose of what we're talking about tonight is for the board feedback, because my hope is that we are able to have you vote on this successfully pass it at our next board meeting at the end of June. So I'll start by reviewing how the plan connects to the board's original direction that we worked on last fall. And then we'll talk about some monitoring and accountability structures, how the board and the superintendent have different roles with implementation and oversight, and then identify any final refinements that we'd like you to work on before our next board meeting. The timeline that we've worked on, again, this started last fall where we set a calendar and communication plan. We spent a couple meetings where we did a deep dive into the current strategic plan, what worked, what didn't, what do we want to see in the new plan. The guidance document that you had, that I gave an extra copy to the board, you have this in front of you. This defined what you wanted and to see in the plan. And so that really is something that I came back to repeatedly throughout the process to make sure we were headed in the right direction. In February and March, we had steering team meetings that took a look at the community survey and other data. We had focus group sessions with staff, students, and community as well. Let's see, the district team. So after the steering team finished its work, things were handed off to our district leaders and our teacher leaders. We did a lot of time looking at research-based practices to accompany the plan. And so where we're at right now is sharing that draft with board, steering team, and teacher leaders. We're reviewing the plan, and then later this month, board adoption. This picture is from one of those steering team meetings. We had, just as a reminder, we had over 500 survey responses. Over half of those were students. And then 50 steering team members were regularly attending. And then our teacher leaders gave input on those research-based strategies. And this really does reflect that this plan was not something that I sat in my office and put together on my own. It's not something that the board just came up with on its own. This really does reflect a lot of voices and a lot of desires from people across our district. Okay, what did the board ask for? So the first part was defining the purpose. And so the purpose was, I'm not going to read through each one of those, but as I talk about the plan today, I'm going to ask that each of you keep in mind, does the draft plan accomplish these goals? Are we providing clear direction? Are we talking about how we're engaging students, staff, and families? Are we creating measurable outcomes and accountability? Some of the guiding principles that were also established by the board last fall were that the plan needs to be inclusive, transparent, data-informed, action-oriented, accountable, that we're modeling learning, and we're celebratory. And my assessment of the plan, that's what my idea is around where I see evidence in the plan. But again, if there's any disagreement on that, or you think that things need to be stronger, that's something that I'd like to hear before we vote on the plan. One of the main things that I heard from the board and from community members is that we're going to make a plan that better be actionable. It shouldn't just be something that is a link on a website or in a binder in somebody's office, that we actually live it. And the way that I believe that this plan meets that goal is that we have outcomes, targets, practices, and monitoring. And it's really clear that we have identified who does what. We're not just going to say we're going to teach better. We're saying what are teachers going to do? What are principals going to do? What is the district office going to do? And that way, it's a lot harder for someone to say, well, I thought somebody else was going to take care of that. And we'll be able to see if the work that we're doing matters or not. So when I sent out the draft plan a couple weeks ago, these three documents, the first two documents were not in it. So these are new. I'm going to dive into these in a little bit more detail. And then I did make a change to the district foundations based off of some feedback that I've already received and wanting to make some modifications to the plan. So the first document is about monitoring and implementation. And it is a really good idea to, put all the ideas that we have put together are great, but unless we have a plan for how we're going to come back and revisit it regularly and honestly, that's where it's going to fall into just a plan on a shelf type situation. So what I am proposing is that we have regular progress reports 4 times a year in September, January, April, and June, where in each of those types of meetings, we have a specific purpose to dive into the plan and talk about how it's going. Because I really want the plan to be a living document, I also want to provide in years 2 and 4 a strategic refresh where we have the opportunity to literally open the plan back up and make some structural changes if we need to. If the data is saying that we need to do something different, if we've already met a goal and we need to change a goal, or any number of things, it gives us the opportunity to do that. And so that would be something that would happen in the kind of instead of the regular January progress report, it would be a strategic refresh. And that would be based on data, and it would be a real opportunity to make sure that our plan is staying up to date. The other piece that we didn't get finished in this school year is to finish the graduate profile. And that was something I didn't want to rush. We talked about it in the steering team, but this is such an important piece of the plan that I've wanted to make sure we're giving it enough time. And so when we have this finished strategic plan at the end of this year, there will be kind of a placeholder for the graduate profile is coming. What I'd like to do is identify a group of stakeholders that will work on this. I'll work on that this summer so that over the course of the fall, winter, and spring, we'll start working on examining workforce data. What is the world like that our students are really going into? We want to review staff, student, and family survey data that will have some new surveys coming out this fall. I also want to really define for Mount Baker, what are the skills or core competencies that we say our graduates will have. This is a promise to our community about what all of our students should have when they graduate from our school district. And then we'll be able to update, kind of insert that work into the strategic plan when it's done. One of the things that's important, this is something that Russ has highlighted repeatedly, is that this really matters, especially because of artificial intelligence and how it's changing the world for our students, that they're the workforce that they're headed into. So how are we thinking ahead about what the experience is for our students here so that they're ready for that? It doesn't mean necessarily embracing everything about artificial intelligence, but how are we making sure that students are ready for that world and navigating that? While our standards are incredibly important, there are also skills about adaptability, collaboration, and critical thinking that our employers want. And Mount Baker has a really good reputation for producing strong, good, reliable students that go out into the workforce. And so I think we just need to capitalize that, capture that, and be able to define it for what we want. The other piece is foundations. And so the bulk of the plan really focuses on what's happening in classrooms, as it should, but the district foundations defines what we're going to be doing more at the district level to ensure that the conditions exist for those classroom actions to happen. And the highlighted part that's there that I added, and again, this comes from the feedback about artificial intelligence, is that at least for this initial phase of the plan, we need to do some research about what is the current reality. We did a staff survey just about a month ago, where we're collecting data about just where our staff is in understanding artificial intelligence. In the fall, we're going to do the same thing for students, and we're going to start gathering the information we need to make informed decisions about what outcomes we want in that particular area. The example that's on the board, so the foundation statement is that we're going to monitor emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence, and develop policies, professional learning, and instructional guidance that support responsible and effective implementation. And so there are things that district leaders will do around collecting data. The graduate profile work, I think, will do some really important work around there. And then I would hope that the school board would consider a district policy on AI. And that would be an example of the proactive, forward-thinking work that the board can do to push this. And then when we get to that 2028 strategic refresh, we'll be ready to put some really informed information into the plan that we'll carry forward with.
I like that. I like that approach. I think I had wanted to see it incorporated. I think this is a good systematic way where we can make sure that we know which steps we're taking and why as we take them. I think it's also important to just remember the difference between governance and management. And so the board's role throughout this process will be to continue to working on outcomes, policy, resource allocation. My role as the district leader is to then implement that and work to make sure that our staffing programs and procedures are meeting those needs. And so these are just suggestions or questions that we'll ask ourselves during those review meetings and strategic refresh to make sure that we're looking at this critically and not just rubber stamping this work, that it's meaningful and real. This is just a preview. I'm working on just some of the graphics around what the final plan will look like, and some of the ways that we're starting to look at the mission, the core values, the vision. I think it's incredibly important to keep our students' images at the center of this work, because this is, all of you are why we're doing this work, and that's important to see. That's a really nice look to it.
We've got really good looking kids. And then I just included a bunch of slides here. So as we have the conversation, if you're wanting to refer to any particular part of the plan, I can put a visual up there, but we've got the goals, outcomes, and performance targets. So our four goal areas are safety and belonging, early learning, mastery of standards, future ready. We have outcomes that are identified with each of those, and then clear ways that we're going to measure progress. And a lot of those baselines we have now, but this fall we'll be establishing more of those through what our current test scores are this year, working with teachers and principals on their school improvement plans. And really importantly for me, that last column, I know it's really small up there, but those are the tools that we're going to actually use to measure. That's something that you didn't see in the last plan. What are the tests that we're going to use? What are the surveys that we're going to use? That keeps us honest, and we can come back to that anytime we need to. And then this is an example of, actually, what I did is I just took screenshots of all of them, but just focusing on that safety and belonging, where we're going to say that students have a sense of belonging. That survey that we're going to give them in the fall is going to create our baseline data so that we can start measuring how students feel about school and what they need from us. Some work that we've already started, let's see here. This year is specifically about making sure that students feel safe at school. And so, for example, at the classroom level, teachers are going to make sure that students know how to access trusted adults and respond promptly to student concerns. Principals will make sure that students and families know how to report concerns. And at the district level, we're working on implementation of stronger safety procedures. And we've been working with our counselors and other staff to create updated safety plans, support plans, and CPS monitoring. And so that's just one example of how all three kind of areas work together to work toward a goal. Is it going to work? I don't know, but we're going to start measuring it, and we'll see. Okay, so that is my overview. And now I'm looking forward to seeing what feedback you might have.
Brennan, why don't you start?
Okay, well, I had a few questions, 3 of them were answered from this, so, basically it was like, how will successes and setbacks be presented to the board and community, regular progress reports, I think that's excellent, and having that written out and down, we can then incorporate it into our board calendar and be prepared, and, that can also be on the website too. What happens when an outcome or target is met or exceeded, or what happens when it's not getting met or succeeded? Strategic refresh. That's fantastic. So that mostly my questions were just kind of like, what is the flexibility to pivot or expand as needed? And it sounds like that is built in there. But then I would wonder, where is this document, the monitoring plan and the implementation plan, is that part of what would be in the strategic plan? So like that's in the book that will be out there. Okay. And then I was just curious about like the timeframes. So just more like, so some of it can start before it ends. I don't know. I guess that's kind of a fluid thing, I'm imagining. Does that make any sense?
Not really.
So does the work start before the previous phase ends? So like if something's for year 1 and 2, are you starting to work on 2 and 3 before 1 is done?
I think it would depend on some of the feedback we get at that strategic refresh, like our have we met the goals? Can we kind of put that one to rest and move on to years 2 and 3? And you'll notice those columns are blank in the draft plan, because that's the work that I still want to finish between now and the next time you see it, to kind of phase that out. I'm waiting to get this feedback before I finish that.
That was kind of it. I like the district foundations, that clear, and it's definitely with how you're going to measure. I like to know what all of that is, so then we can ask for that information and where, you know, when we can know where it's gonna come from, so. Yeah, I think this is great.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of questions answered tonight. The progress reports 4 times a year, that was good, because as long as I've been on the board, I don't ever really recall that we've gone back to the strategic plan that we had in place. And when you looked at it, it was not quite as easy to follow or look at like the one that we're presenting now. So that's gonna help a lot. And everything seems to be measurable. And then that last sheet that was, even though it was small, but I brought my glass today so I can see it. It was gonna shows how that's gonna happen. I was wondering, yeah, we said it's all measurable, but to show how it's gonna be done is good. And then, and like adding the profile stuff for AI, because as much as I'm not a fan of it, it is coming and it's happening, so it's might as well embrace it, I guess. So that's good. So, yeah, I like it. I'm looking forward to going with it and using it for us as far as budget and just making a better school year and a better school for everybody. I think it's gonna be good.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm gonna say it, I'm really, really excited about our strategic plan. I think it's upward aiming. It's got all the elements that we had hoped for in there. And it's, like you said, it's got those measurable items and it's getting incorporated into our ongoing operations. So I think this is really what we need. And I'm hoping we can all rally around this and get the most out of it. I mentioned before, we have our, we're most likely approving this, and then 2 months from now, approving a budget, right? So let's take that opportunity to reflect on this in light of the budget, see what's supported. Now, not everything in the strategic plan is financially impacted, but there are certainly things in there. I think Jen mentioned that as well. So just kind of want to make sure that we are thinking about that. And really, that's part of what we're trying to do, incorporate that in there, right? So a couple things under the board role. One of the items is align policy development with strategic priorities, right? And so far, our policies get updated because Jessica initiates that based on an analysis, right, of where we're deficient. This, and this is part of the discussion I had with Jessica in preparation for the meeting. This is now going to be a more proactive policy line. We're not going to be reacting to what Jessica initiates. We are being asked to proactively look at the policies and make sure they align. So this is new work for the board. And one of the ideas that Jessica had, ironically speaking about AI, is putting the policies into a bot and our strategic plan and starting to come up with and think about where the policies fall short and what they need to be fixed. Correct? So that's, because it's kind of daunting, right? When you think about, we have hundreds of policies, right? Like, how do they get reviewed and assessed, right? We need some help and resources to do that. And then the other item, ensure resources and budgets support the plan. I think I already mentioned that, this is something that we can do right now rather than waiting for next year. I think that was it. Yeah.
In regard to board, policies and the strategic plan, the strategic plan based policies are a subset of our board policy requirements. And many of the policies that Jessica presents to us that we review are ones that come from WASDA based on changes in state or federal law. Those are going to keep coming at that same rate because we're obligated and we take an oath of office to uphold the laws, the Constitution of the state and federal government. And so we'll continue to do that, but I think, I'm particularly in things like artificial intelligence, I do think we need to spend some time looking at that and really working with staff and students on that so that we can shape board policy that's actually gonna work. And it's I get where you're coming from, Jason, on but it's, the dam is already broken. Yeah. The water's coming down the Skagit River. We're sitting in Burlington. And we're either gonna have a really nice boat float on top of it, or we're gonna be lost in the flood. And I think that it's changing so rapidly that programs that we develop one month will be out of date the next month. So we need to have a process that has that in mind. And so we're not gonna end up with our students getting to a point where they can work the rest of their career with what they've learned here. We will get them to the point where they can learn the next thing. And that's, and not be afraid of learning the next thing. That's, I think, the most critical. So and you guys already know that. And it's, I've read that students who graduated from college 2-3 years ago are disadvantaged, the ones that are graduating now. Because they get the current capability with using artificial intelligence. So I think, but I want to go back here and just say this strategic plan is really looking good. I think the process that we took is very reflected in the plan as it's developed. So we started with some board guidance, very extensive community, both surveys and then in-person meetings. And that all shows up in here. And I think a lot of districts will hire a consultant to make their strategic plan. I think that those kind of strategic plans tend to end up on the shelf. And this has been a tremendous amount of work for you, this tremendous amount of work. But I think we'll have a better and more actionable plan because. So I wanted to note that and appreciate that here. And it's I think in the years I've been on the board, this is the best iteration of our strategic plan by far. I've gone through this process a number of times, but this is definitely the best one. So I also am glad that as you reflected on this with staff to spend this coming year on the graduate profile, because I was feeling like we weren't ready for it too. I mean, that was my feeling, and I think having our students will help a great deal with that, because it's your profile that we're coming up with, and so your engagement, both yourselves and your peers, is extremely critical. So I'm very pleased with what we come up with, and I think it's unless we add something in the intervening couple of weeks, I'm ready to go ahead with this as board approval at our next meeting.
One question for us to think about for the regular board updates is, are they part of the board meeting or are they special study sessions? I'm feeling like they should probably be special study sessions so that we can make sure we allocate enough time and attention to it.
Yeah, and we may try that out that way and see, okay, is this the best way? Is this working? Can we fit it in with the board meeting, or should we take that extra time? So Yeah, that's good suggestion. So before we go on, I'd open this up to the three of you, and I'll start with you, Colby.
I would like to say that I'm really excited for the advance of AI. Like, I think it'll be very beneficial in a lot of the things, like looking over things and saving time and getting a deeper understanding. Because I use it to gain an understanding, and there's so many tools out there now that can teach you a lot. And I really believe it's a really good step if we open our minds to it. Because it is scary. I mean, every new technology is very scary, but it can be a net benefit on our school.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, I am very excited about this. I think it's awesome. I think what we're doing is awesome. Obviously in the student portion, like you said, we can definitely open our minds to it. And I think focusing on kind of how students are learning and what we're teaching them for the profile of the graduate, and really focusing on that is important, obviously. I had one question, Lita answered it. Because one of my biggest things, especially coming on to doing this, is communication, right? I call ourselves the bridge between the board and the students, and when I'm thinking about that stuff that's going on, and like policies we're changing to help students in the classroom and things we're doing to improve learning, I'm thinking about how students will take that and thinking about how students will know what we're doing and how we're doing it. And so my big thing was communication with students and how that would be held when stuff is happening, to improve the students' learning and improve the students' success. And as Lita pointed out, that's my job. That's what I do. So that kind of brought me back to when we kind of asked the board, like, what is a student rep's job? I think this is one of those jobs, is to continually communicate what the strategic plan goals are happening and what we're doing to complete those, and communicating that with students, to basically be like, hey, we're doing this for a reason. Here's our reason. You can help us. And also to hold ourselves accountable. I feel like students love arguing. We love arguing. Teenagers love it. And so I think if we're, at any point struggling with the plan and it's not going to what we want it to, opening that up and asking students, like, what do you see that's wrong? Students will tell you immediately. They'll be like, yeah, you're wrong. And I think that can kind of hold us accountable in that sense.
I'd say first thing is like, I'm all like you when it comes to AI. I'm kind of like avoid it as much as possible type of person. But I do think that, Russ has a point. It's kind of an emerging technology, and ultimately we have to adapt. Otherwise, our students are going to get left behind. So I think it's just kind of developing something that will kind of tread that fine line of ethical use, but also just making sure that, our students aren't using it in place, like to do their learning for them, because that's obviously like the biggest issue when it comes to like AI and students is, will they use it to cheat? The answer is probably yes. Now, I'm not saying all students. Colby's an extraordinary student, but I'm saying, we've heard teachers, say, oh, kids will be using AI on their assignments. Then I asked them in person about their like assignments or whatever, and all of a sudden they can't tell me a thing about it. So it's obvious that, we have to make sure that they are prepared and have these skills for when they go out into the world. So that way they have at least a little bit of a head start, but also making sure that they know it's a tool and not a replacement for their brain, basically.
Yeah. Great, very good. There we are. So I think that's everything on the strategic plan review. Thank you so much on that. And then next is board action items. First up is approval of capital needs assessment proposal. That was the one we just looked at. And so it's what we're approving here is just that broad overview of the essentially the budget for that, and not individual projects by and large. Any discussion, any questions or discussion first?
Are we talking about the?
So this is the $4.7 million capital proposal, I believe that.
This is the, so I put these on as action items instead of in the consent agenda because I thought based off of the capital project presentation and because these are two key pieces that are going to kick off some pretty big work across the district with our capital projects, I wanted to pull this out and have an affirmative vote by the board about taking this direction or not. So the capital needs assessment is what is kind of the next step of that.
Oh, yeah, okay, it's not the whole budget, it's just the capital needs. I was,
Like, for what million?
I was, yeah, the pages, I was confused on that page, you're right. That's it's just the next more detailed level of analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see two contracts are on here, both for surveys. One is 65,000. Am I looking at the right thing? Right, and the other's 35,000. Okay, so which one are we talking about first?
So the first one, so this is the 55,
This is the 65.
65.
Okay, this is the larger
turf
detailed
field
assessment.
proposal pre-application is the 35,000.
Yes, the capital needs assessment will give us the details we need to take that kind of generic $4 million and say exactly what are the projects we're going to do with each of those.
So I guess, so what I'm looking for would be a motion to approve the capital needs assessment proposal with a budget of $65,000.
We're all done with discussion, no one's discussing.
We can
I'm just looking
we
at
can
the
make a
contract,
motion.
yeah.
I read it earlier,
Yeah,
I mean,
you
I
did.
was like.
And then we can have a discussion before we vote on it, if we want to go that route. I'll ask these these Parley kids.
Yeah. Only one. You got this, girl. Go ahead.
No, any other questions or discussions first, but before we?
No, I don't have anything.
So there again, I would like to, I would entertain a motion to that.
Motion to approve capital needs assessment proposal.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is approval of the turf field pre-application proposal, and if you could kind of explain where you're at with that before we get into that.
Well, a year ago when I started working here, one of the first things that I was hearing about was we need improvements to our football field and we need improvements to our soccer fields. And since then, those calls have not stopped. So definitely priorities in the district. And so as we one of the reasons we went with Service and when we did our request for qualifications is they are the group that is working with Nooksack Valley School District on their new football field. And so they are very up to date with what the current costs and just best practices are for this type of project. And when a year ago, I think I heard it from a few people, well, we've done all the base work on the football field, so it should just be like an easy thing, right? We'll just take the grass off and throw turf on and we should be good to go. It's gonna be a lot more complicated than that. Costs have changed since the last time that it was assessed. And then there's also some issues around the salmon stream that is still running underneath that field. And possibly that stream is changing course a little bit too. So, and that's showing up in our track surface where you take a walk around the track, the uneven surface and just some of the repairs that are needed there. So we need to make sure that once we put together a plan, one, that we're not going to run into roadblocks with the county or the state when it comes to salmon. And two, that when we do this project, we do it right. And that we're not going to have to fix things later because we went too fast. So some of the things that this work would do, and this would be work that could be done over the summer, I believe, yes, is to review the existing field conditions and look at the proposed design cost estimates from 2023. Develop an initial site and facility concept they're saying in a good, better, best type scenario. So we have some choices to work with as we make decisions. I'm not going to read through all of it here, but looking for grant application support. That was another big piece as I talked to the people from Nooksack Valley that they really appreciated about Service is that they were supporting some of the grant work that is going to be needed for this project. I know we'll get a lot of donations and a lot of interest, and we can use capital projects funding, but we're gonna need grants. And so they'll be able to support us with that. I had a good meeting with some ASB students a couple of weeks ago who they're very interested in seeing some progress on this. And so I told them that by August, we should have an update about and just keeping the students informed and involved as we go. But this is a critical first step to make sure we're getting the right information that we need.
Any questions on that?
So this will fall within the overall assessment that we just voted to approve.
This is in addition
This
to,
is in addition to that.
yes,
Okay.
Colby has a.
And then for me talking to ASB, like there's a lot of discrepancy between like what we know, like what we think is gonna like, if it's even possible for the field to be like fixed up. What should I know so I can transfer that information about the situation?
So I think to answer that, as far as the technical aspects of what's possible and stuff, that's what this particular proposal is to answer, is to attempt to begin to answer those questions. So we don't have the answers at this point, but so at the completion of this assessment, we should have a pretty good picture of those answers, of what the possibilities would be with at least current cost estimates attached to those possibilities. So.
This also has implications for our soccer fields, because as we've looked at some options, and Shannon, if you want to jump in, you're done. If, depending on what we do with this field, if it could also be our new soccer field too, because we're not gonna have to worry about wear and tear on the field.
Right.
So, before we decide to put a lot of money into refurbing those fields, we just want to make sure that we're going to use the money that we have in the best way possible. In some of the conversations we've already had with service, they had I can't remember the gentleman's name, he's from Montana, but I mostly remember.
His name is Eric.
Yes, he specializes in athletic fields and just like all the ins and outs of the soil and the drainage and everything else. And so we walked over to the soccer fields, and he actually had some suggestions on aerating it differently that would just, it'd be a temporary fix. It's not going to make it a perfect field. But those are some of the things we're looking at over the summer to possibly improve conditions, knowing that we've got a lot more work to do after that.
Do we need any further questions on this proposal? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the turf field pre-application proposal with a budget of $35,000 from capital projects. Fund.
Motion to approve turf field pre-application proposal with a budget of $35,000 for capital project.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Passed. Okay, policy review, Mount Baker policy 6212, charge cards and payment cards.
This is a fairly minimal change, but as we've been going through the audit process and reviewing our procedures, it's important to have a really tight rein on how we use credit cards and procurement cards in the district, and be really clear with staff about how we use them. And if we get that effort, let's see what the changes are. So the major addition is language about expectations that if a card is used accidentally for personal or other unauthorized expenses, what we do in response. And this is recommendations from the state auditor's office. Do that, and I think that's the only. Yeah. And so this prompts a lot more language in the procedure, which the board does not approve, but it's attached for your information. But this helps us be more financially responsible.
And that came out of what they do.
No, it was not. It wasn't tied to the audit at all.
Oh, okay.
But just it's more. It was something that Gatana asked us to take a look at.
Okay.
you get a feel for how many district issued cards are out there and what types of positions have those cards?
I don't remember the number. I have one, but it's kept in the safe. I don't want to accidentally lose that. Are some of our CTE teachers who have to make regular purchases for food or supplies, they'll have them, those types of folks.
Any further questions?
No.
If not, I entertain a motion to approve Mount Baker policy 6212 for first and final reading.
Motion to approve policy 6212, first and final reading.
Second. Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, next is upcoming meetings, regular meetings. Our next regular meeting, June 25th. I know you can't make it then.
Right.
I'm gonna be out of town, but I can do some of it on Zoom.
There has been a suggestion of maybe moving it to the 24th.
Yeah. But how do you feel about
Can we be done at 7:30?
what's that?
Can we be done at 7:30 on the 24th?
24th? Yeah.
Okay, then I'll move it.
So the 24th, so what we're doing with the meeting agenda, so we're gonna, our plan is to adopt the strategic plan, but since, and I wanted to have this discussion tonight instead of trying to have this discussion on the same night that we adopted. We needed that time and a little bit of time in case this discussion resulted in changes, last minute changes. So we'll be we have a public budget hearing then? No.
No, the budget hearing will be at the July meeting.
So there's no, there's not any other substantive.
I believe that Todd Reitmeyer will be here to do his Perkins grant presentation.
Okay,
So I would let him know about the date change. We'll vote on the strategic plan. Katana will have her regular budget information for the,
Well, maybe if I can just leave at 7:30.
no, I think we can, yeah, you could leave. So if you leave, so what, we'd still have a quorum, because you're able to come the 24th. I'll attend by Zoom. I'm gonna be in Salt Lake, but,
Danielle, I think
24th.
she, or the 24th. I
okay.
think Danielle
So
said she.
so we'll, change to the 24th.
June 24th.
And then we have written down here the July 9th cancel. Is that still accurate?
I mean, I would recommend it because we're gonna be adding in August 5th for the board retreat. And so the reason it had been canceled was because we were gonna do a July board retreat.
Okay.
And because most of you, I don't think, are here on July 9th.
So are we able to do the payroll and other consent agenda items on the 23rd? Well, that will work then. Okay. And then board retreat will be August 5th, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. in this room.
Okay.
And I think that we finally found a time that would work for all of us.
Right.
So, and if you three are certainly invited and part of it, if you're able to come.
I'll probably just miss the morning because I've got a class to get to, but I'll probably be here for the afternoon.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Good. So, with that wraps up our regular meeting. We can stay and sign the documents, and then we have an executive session. It's still approximately 60 minutes.
Depends on how much people want to talk.
It'll be 60 minutes.
60 minutes. With no decision we made afterward.
I want to take your guys'
Thank you.
What are other?
I want to take one too.
still got another hour.
Well, we got an hour.